Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Emmanuel Cyprian from Titech Consulting. I promised in my last video when I was talking about different types of information security framework that I will try to bring a detailed explanation about each of these frameworks. So I'm going to be starting with the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, which is the CSF. Now, the CSF is widely adopted set of guidelines developed by the US National Institute of Standards and Technology to help organizations manage and reduce cybersecurity risk. Now, originally, this CSF was created in response to the US Presidential Executive Order in 2014. The framework is flexible and scalable, making it applicable across different industries, regardless of size or cybersecurity maturity. So we'll be looking at a very high level, the different components of this framework. As you can see on my banner, I've listed them. This CSF has 5 different key components, and I'm going to be talking about the components and the task, or what we can call the key activities under each component. So now let's get it started. The framework is built around 5 key functions, which represent the high-level activities essential to a well-rounded cybersecurity program. Now, these functions guide organizations in managing their cybersecurity risk. And let's get started with the first component or function, which is called the identify component. Now, this identify component, what is the objective of the identify component? It is to understand the cybersecurity risks to systems, to assets, data, and capabilities so that appropriate safeguards can be developed and implemented. And then what are the key activities that are performed under the identify function? Number 1 key activity is asset management. It means that under the identify function, organizations identify and manage their assets, that is their software, hardware, and data. Another key activities under the identify component is business environment, which means understanding the organization's missions, activities, and critical services. Another key activity under the identify function is governance, establishing policies, roles, responsibilities for cybersecurity. And then we also have risk assessment as another key activity under the identify component. Under the risk assessment activities, what do we have? Identify cybersecurity risk and assess their potential impact. And then we also have risk management strategy as a key activity as well, which means determine key determines the risk tolerance and set policies for risk mitigation. And then the last key activities that is under the identify component is the supply chain risk management, which is to address risk related to third-party providers or partners. So these are the key activities that we have under the identify component. Now let's look at the second component under the CSF framework, which is protect. The objective of the protect component is to develop and implement safeguard to limit or contain the impact of cybersecurity events. To develop and implement safeguards that will help to limit and contain the impact of cybersecurity events. What are the key activities under the protect component? Number 1, access control, limiting access to only authorized users. Number 2 activity under the protect component is awareness and training, provide cybersecurity education and training to staffs. Number 3 key component under the protect component, that is number 3 key activity that you perform under the protect component is data security. implement measures to protect data integrity, confidentiality, and availability. Another key activities that you will find under the protect component is information protection process and procedures. And then another key activity is maintenance, and then followed by protective technology. So these are the 6 basic key activities that needs to be performed under the protect component of the CSF framework. Now let's look at the third component of the CSF framework, which is detect. The objective of the detect component is that to develop and implement activities to identify the occurrence of a cybersecurity event as soon as possible. The objective of the detect component is to develop and implement activities to identify the occurrence of cybersecurity event as soon as possible. So what are the key players, that is activities that you perform under the detect component? There are 3 activities that you perform. Activity number 1 is anomalies and events, which means you detect, analyze unusual activities or security incidents. So that is where you have the Splunk. The organizations implement Splunk, which helps them to detect anomalies and unusual activities. And then number 2 activities under the detect component is security continuous monitoring. Security continuous monitoring, which means continuously monitor systems and network for potential threats. And then number 3 key activity that you perform under the detect component is detection process, ensuring policies and procedures are in place to detect cybersecurity events efficiently. So which means under this detect component, that's where you have the intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention system, you have the Splunk, and then every other tools, detection tools that organization needs to implement in order to detect in the real time any cybersecurity threat or unusual activities within the organization, within the network, within the application. And then we have the 4th component, key component under the CSF framework, which is to respond. Now, what is the objective of this component? It is to take action once a cybersecurity event is detected to minimize its impact. Respond means taking action once a cybersecurity event is detected so as to minimize the impact. Now, what are the key activities that needs to be performed under the respond component? Number 1, response planning. Organizations need to establish and maintain an incident response plan. And then another key activities under the respond component is communication. Organizations need to ensure effective communication both internally and externally during security events. That is why you see that whenever an organization suffers a cyber breach, communication is key. How do you communicate that cyber breach event or incidents to both your internal customers and external customers, notifying them of what has happened and what you are doing, what you intend to do, and what actions the owners of those data needs to take. So that is key. Communication is a key activity that needs to be performed under the respond component. Another key activity under the respond component is analysis. That is, investigate detected incidents to determine their impact and how to contain them. And then we have mitigation, which is another key activity under the respond component. Mitigation means to implement activities to contain and reduce the impact of cybersecurity incidents. And then lastly, another activities under the respond component is improvement. That is, update response strategies based on lessons learned from incidents. Improvement. So that is component respond, which is the 4th component under the CSF framework. Now let's look at the last component under the CSF framework, which is recover. So what is the key objective of this recover component? The key objective is to develop and implement plans to restore systems and services after a cybersecurity incident and ensure resilience. The objective of the recover component is to develop and implement plans to restore systems and services after a cybersecurity incident and ensure resilience. Now, what are the activities that needs to be performed under the recover component? 1, recovery planning. Develop and maintain a recovery plan to ensure restore systems after a breach or attack. And then number 2 activity that you perform under the recover component is improvement. Incorporate lesson learned in the recovery process to improve future resilience. And then lastly, activity you perform under the recover component is communication. Coordinate public relation and communication with stakeholders following incidents. So that is the key components and their activities under the CSF framework. Now, under the CSF framework, there are tiers. So NIST CSF provides 4 implementation tiers that describes the degree to which organization cybersecurity practice aligns with the framework. The tiers are used to help organizations assess their current cybersecurity maturity and determine desired future state. So let's look at the tiers. Tier number 1 is partial. The characteristics of this tier 1 is, cybersecurity risk management. It's, is informal. They are reactive and lack formal process. The organizations lack awareness of cybersecurity risk or only addresses them as needed. So that is tier 1. It is partially implemented. Their cybersecurity framework or a maturity level is partially implemented. Tier 2 is the risk-informed tier. And the characteristics of this risk-informed tier is that some risk management practices or processes are in place, but they are not consistently applied across the organization. Cybersecurity practices may be somewhat aligned with organizational risk strategy, but there is still room for improvement. That is tier 2, risk-informed. Tier 3 is repeatable tier, which means the characteristics there is risk management practices are established, consistently followed, and refined over time. Policies, procedures, and tools are formalized and actively used to manage cybersecurity risk. And then tier 4 is adaptive. It means that the organization is highly proactive in managing cybersecurity risk, continuously improve and improvement and agile process allow the organizations to adapt quickly to emerging threats. Now, the framework of this, the profile of this the profile of this CSF framework is that now organizations implement whichever framework that best suits them. Organizations implement the best framework that best suits them. And what is the benefit of this CSF? I cannot conclude this, this video without talking about the benefit of the CSF cybersecurity framework. Number 1 benefit of this CSF framework is flexibility. Number 2 is it has common language. Number 3 is risk management focus. Number 4 is compliance. Number 5 is continuous improvement. Continuous improvement. So this is the high-level information I want to bring to your attention regarding the NIST cybersecurity framework. I hope this video makes sense to you. I hope this video helps you to have an idea about this NIST cybersecurity framework, and it gives you additional knowledge or information on what you need to know about this framework. And please, if this video makes sense to you, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to like this video, share this video, and turn on your notification button. The more you like the video, the more you comment, the more you share this video, it gives me that motivation to come up with more videos, that will provide information to you, my subscribers. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.